Welcome to our program. We're so glad you joined us today. We're starting a bit of a different thing, our theme this time. For the next 3 months, we're going to be talking about entertainment in Coffee County because our new exhibit beginning in January is on entertainment Coffee County style. And today we start with the Martin Theater and the infamous Jukebox Saturday Night. And my guests today are Joanne Lewis and Mel McCraney, who were in on the beginning of this. Joanne, tell us a little bit about the Martin Theater as Douglas came to know it in the 80s.
Well, it's kind of interesting, and they both tie in so much together, but I lived in Atlanta for about 8 years, and when I moved back in 1979, within a few weeks of getting back, Miss Betty Malcolm and Mr. Johnny Dean Sr. came to see me and asked me if I knew much about Saving the Fox in Atlanta. And I said, well, yeah, I know, they're Saving the Fox Theater. And they said, well, we want you to help us get involved in a committee to save the Martin Theater in Douglas. And honestly, I thought, y'all got to be kidding me. But I went over there and looked at it, and we got to talking. And Miss Betty had moved here from Florida, and she loved to sing opera. And her dream was to be able to have a stage for performing arts, and she also wanted to sing. And Mr. Johnny, he was just a good community leader, and he saw the importance of it. So anyway, I got involved in that process first, and it was a long, hard process. The Martin Theater was in terrible disrepair, terrible. It opened in 1940. And the Martin Company kept it operating until the 1970s. It closed in about 72 or 73, and it just sat there as a white elephant in downtown. And by 79, it was dirty, dingy, disrepair, not really usable. So this little group formed as the Martin Center Auditorium Association is how it formed. And I can't remember who else was on the committee, but those two kind of led the way, and I was just following. Well, later on, I got involved with the city when they were becoming a Main Street city, and ended up going to work for the city doing downtown development and the Main Street program. And performing arts is a big part of tourism and downtown development. So I continued to be interested in the theater and how we could turn it into something to bring more money, more revenue, and more entertainment to downtown Douglas. So right after I joined Main Street, we had in our budget some money for promotions in downtown. So the City Commission graciously approved for those monies to be used for a production at the Martin Center. And that time it was still called the Old Martin Theater. And it was Grease. And we had community auditions. Mel was in that very first show. She was a big star in Grease. Several people around town were. And it was amazing. We made $4,000 off of that show. And that theater was in terrible shape, but it was a sellout crowd. And what we were going to do is take that money and put it toward the theater or to developing more programs down there, but we realized so much work needed to be done. So I went back to the City Commission and asked if we could take that revenue and use it to start a show with a kind of a 50s musical review. There was a show that was playing at a theater in Buckhead in Atlanta, and it was called American Jukebox, right, Mel? And at that time, a group that had got involved, been a part of Grease and got involved, went up and took a look at the show. Mel and I were a couple. There were several more, Linda Christian, Sylvia Chambers, John Bennett. I don't remember who went to see the show, John Adams, I mean. But we got the idea we could produce a show like that. And we held auditions. Excuse me. This was a kind of a city downtown development program. And we had over 100 people audition for Jukebox Saturday night. And we put the show together, and it was a sellout crowd, and it was wonderful. And we said, well, we'll do it again. And we did. And at that time, we were practicing for the show, and the fire marshal shut us down. Not the local, the state fire marshal. And I made a trip to Atlanta and met with them in Atlanta. And finally got permission to do the show if we didn't use any dressing room. So we all just dressed in the alley, you know. And it was a great night and a great show.
Mel, I hear you were on the steering committee. Where did y'all meet?
We met at the Fern Bank. We met at the Fern Bank and decided what we were gonna do and how we were gonna handle all this. We met many times.
And there was a lot of people there that worked at the hospital at that time, in Greece. I mean, not, well, in Greece, but also in Jukebox.
In Jukebox.
Yeah, we had Linda Christian and Dale Wilson and Shanda Jowers and, who else did we have?
You're too old to remember, aren't you?
I'm too old
Be
to remember.
honest,
You're
be
right,
honest.
Absolutely, I'm too old to remember.
Dr. Navarro in the
Dr.
first one?
Navarro.
And y'all had rehearsals.
We had
A lot of rehearsals.
The first performance that we did, we did rehearsals for almost 6 months. I know it was at least 6 months because we worked. There were so many people in the cast, number one, and a lot of people like me. The only thing I'd ever done was Grease, and they'd not been on the stage, so we didn't know really what to expect, but we got it done.
And did a great job.
Did
at
a
it.
great job. It
Super
was
job.
great. Yes.
And years later, how many years? 25?
Yep.
It was still going strong?
Still going strong. We, after several years of doing Jukebox here, then we had a traveling. And there were only like 30 members of the cast that traveled because a lot of them could not travel.
Right.
You know, so. But 30 of us went, and we went all over South Georgia, North Florida, you know, North Georgia. We just went everywhere doing Jukebox Saturday night.
And was this for fundraisers or for?
No, it was not for the fun.
For their local funds?
It was we did it for the cities to raise money. Yes, we did that. Yeah.
And I know you did it for the bicycle riders across Georgia.
We
that
did.
That was South
Twice.
Georgia College.
We did that twice for them
Yes.
that I remember. Yeah.
Yep.
Somebody asked me the other day, they need to do it again. I told them, they're all too old.
Yes.
You need a younger generation to do this.
And the thing about the younger generation, they don't want to work that hard. It was not easy.
It was not easy, and it's still not.
easy. No.
You lose your oxygen a lot of times on the stage.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, the first time we did it, I danced with Clay Lee, and I told Clay, I said, I'm going to go to the hospital, I'm going to get us an oxygen tank, put it downstairs, down there, we're going to hide. We can breathe. We didn't.
That's right.
After Grease started, then other programs occurred. I know we had a lot of drama when Randy Wheeler was in town from the college.
Right.
But how long did it take from Grease and Jukebox to get the theater done?
Well, like Mel said, when we first started Jukebox, which followed Grease, the funds went to help get the theater renovated. And the first two shows, the 2 weekends of shows, generated about $25,000. And we took that money and gave it to the city, and they used it as seed money to hire architects for the theater. And that was Britton Thompson, Bray and Brown out of Macon, Georgia, and Charles Lewis Construction Company, and here was the general contractor. And also, we worked with the Georgia Department of Corrections, who brought in people to help with the work. So it took, though, the first Jukebox show was in 1989, and the grand opening of the renovated theater was 1999. It took 10 years. But I tell everybody in economic development, downtown development world, any project worthwhile is going to take 10 to 20 years. And a good example of that is this theater that was the same way. But Jukebox was the catalyst that put in money. And one other thing I wanted to mention, leadership changes, but projects continue. I mentioned that the Martin Center Auditorium Association began. Through that, we formed Coffee Alliance for the Arts, And then through that, the theater was renovated. But the renovations itself, once that seed money was put into the pot, then there were 4 people that stepped up as a committee for renovation. That was Sylvia Chambers, Jean Chambers, Francis Lott, and Curtis Farah. So they actually worked with the architect to get it all together and get it renovated. So it was 10 years from the first jukebox show until the reopening and the renovation of the theater, which Jukebox was the show for the opening. And today, even more improvements have been made, and there's a private individual now that manages the theater. And I know I met with him back in September to look at some dates for a show, and there was only one weekend between the mid-September and January 1st that wasn't booked. And I know you're talking about entertainment. People say in Douglas, well, there's nothing to do. But I don't think they look for anything to do because, gosh, just Friday night.
Right, exactly. Packed.
Oh my gosh, John Gloson's Christmas concert. How could it be any better? Oh, that was better than any Broadway show I've seen. And so the efforts that started way back in the 70s to save it, in the 80s to renovate it, are continued today with great entertainment in downtown Douglas.
I remember the opening, the 99 grand opening, because Brad Weiner is in a tux on the street where they took the picture.
Yeah.
And neon lights behind him, standing in front of a limo, letting somebody out. You know, this big grand. It was like a grand opening, especially for Douglas. You don't see many men on the streets in a tux.
And I know we had a limo out front. And somebody told us, said, listen, if you want the street to really look good and the pictures to show out, it needs to be wet. So I remember about an hour before the opening that night, we got the fire department to come and just hose down the streets because it made everything look fresh and clean. But it basically, then I looked at the pictures they took and I said, well, it does make sense. The streets were dark and the lights were bright, so hey, special effects.
Yeah.
You folks in Coffee County, if you think there's nothing to do, you need to read a newspaper.
Yeah.
Or pay attention to Facebook or social media, because there is something to do. I know even in the 60s, well, there's nothing to do. The key is there's nothing you want to do, because you don't want to do anything. So I urge you to be cognizant of all the things that are offered and going on. And speaking of which, in January, our exhibit opens on January the 7th. It's a Saturday, and we will be having videos played during the day, and we will have a grand opening reception from 10:30 to 12. So y'all please come out and join us. Thank you two ladies for coming. Appreciate it so much.
We enjoyed it.
Enjoyed it. Thank you.
We'll be right back.
Welcome back. We're so glad you decided to rejoin us. My next guest today is no stranger to any of us. It's Miss Mary Clyde Scott, and I'm going to wish her a happy 95th birthday just a few weeks ago. I am so excited. I can't wait for the 100th. We get ready to go. We're already planning a party. Mary Clyde today is going to talk to us about entertainment in Coffee County in the years past. So you tell us what you used to do for entertainment, Mary Clyde.
Well, the movies were still new. You know, the movies didn't come to Coffee County until the late 20s. And so through the 30s and 40s and even 50s, the movies were sort of a new thing to all of us. And so every time the movie changed, we all went to the movie. And the movie changed 3 times a week back then.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So we had a new movie about every 2 or 3 days. And so everybody, what didn't cost but 35 cents.
Ah.
So everybody would go to the movie every time it changed. And then we'd talk about it all week, about what we had seen.